Hey, what's up guys? I'm Joe, and this is about the most important part of your fence. Alright guys, hey, we're here at the shop today here in Conway, and today we're going to talk about fence post. Everything you need to know about fence post for your fence. It's definitely the most important part of the fence. It provides all the structure and stability for your fence, and sometimes it's also the things that you don't see. It's what's underground and what can be overlooked. So we're going to talk about the different process of setting in general, but the different process that applies to different types of fencing and what to look out for there. So what do wood, chain link, steel have in common versus vinyl and some aluminum fences? Is that the process of digging and setting your post are going to be different for these versus these. And so if you check out our video that we did in Roland for the vinyl tan 3-rail, we talked about the uniqueness of setting posts for the vinyl, and we'll look at that and why that is a little bit deeper of how that works. And then the wood, chain link, steel, those type varieties are a little bit different process, and we can talk through that as well. With that, for let's say group one of these and group two. So with these variety of posts, we dig and set these posts, but we don't set these to the final grade or level when we initially set them. So obviously all yards are not flat and level. You know, you've got ground that may have some different variations. That would be an extreme case, but just go with me on that. So here we're gonna run our string lines and do our layout as normal. Then we're gonna dig and set our post, and we are gonna verify on, well, hopefully it's a little deeper than that. We are gonna verify that we have enough height for these posts, but we're not gonna, at the time of setting posts, get the tops of these exactly where they need to be. So that's the main difference with those. Again, we'll make sure that we've got enough height depending on the type and style of fence, but we're gonna go ahead and just set these posts. Now spacing is important on any of these variables, so we'll make sure that the spacing is correct. But we're gonna set, with wood, chain link, or steel, we're gonna just set these posts in the ground at the initial set. So that's not to scale, all that. Just to show. So whenever you're running your fence line, there's always you're walking a tightrope of, we want to keep the top not necessarily level, but we want it to flow well, yet you also want to minimize big gaps and things. The biggest driver for fence installation at a home is typically a dog or kids, so we are cognizant of that you don't want major gaps that your dog can slip out and all that. So we're always trying to follow the grade as best as possible and not leave huge gaps, but also have a good flow at top, because that's what your eye is going to see when it's looking down the fence. So with this, what we would do once these posts are set and the concrete's cured, typical process is setting post and then letting a day in between for the concrete to cure. But what we're going to do here is we're going to use a jig to mark the height, and the height could vary depending on the type or style of fence. But we're going to mark the height here, and we're going to run string line along the top. And again, that string line we're going to run accordingly to cause this fence to flow the way that it needs to be. But with this, once we set our string line, then we're going to trim the tops of these posts wherever that final height or final grade needs to be. So that's the process for this. And one of the most common questions we get after we've set posts that are wood, chain link, or steel is that, hey, all my posts aren't in line, or the tops of the posts are different heights. And that is true, that they are not going to be completely uniform. There's going to be some variation there, but just know whenever we run our top string line and come back to set the final grade, all those will be trimmed off, and that will flow accordingly how it needs to. So that's the main difference there. You're going to set, then go back and find your height and grade, and then trim to that. The difference here is all of this work of finding your height and getting to the correct grade has to be done on the front end with the vinyl and the aluminum, and we'll look at why that is and how these posts are made different than these. So with our Group 2, the posts are going to need to be set at the proper height and at the proper grade once you set them, and then once they're set, that's you got one shot at it, so you got to get it right there. So say you've got some ground that slopes down or has a hill like that. So with these, you've got to do some prior planning of determining where are your high spots, where are your low spots, where do you have changes in elevation along that fence line, and plan accordingly as you're setting. So we demonstrated some of that with the vinyl install, where we would run a top line and adjust the post as needed with the elevation changes, and then we would go along and we would set those posts to height to that string line. So what that looks like here is what we would find our transition points, or our transition post. So this is assuming we've got our string laid out and our holes marked, and again, either just by eye or with a laser, you're figuring out, okay, where's a high spot, where's a low spot, and you're going to want to account for those. So as we talked, you want the fence to flow as best as possible. You don't want it going up and down with every little change in the ground, but you do want it to flow. So with this, you would say maybe we would start with if this was vinyl or aluminum that has a pre-cut hole, then we may start at this high side, and it's going to have already notched posts, so you have to set those at the right place. But for instance, with the high spot, we may try to cheat this down as much as possible. So we may try to get this as close to the ground as possible, since we know this is high. And then we may we would probably set a couple here in this low spot so that you can make a gradual variation. That's another thing to consider. The more points that you have along the line and along the change, the gradual changes will make it flow better than if you were to just do abrupt, like coming high, going low, and going back up, that sort of thing. That's not going to look as good to the eye. Whereas if you made more transition points along here and gradually changed it, then it's gonna look better as you're going. So anyway, then we would set some in this low point as a transition post, but we may cheat this up a little bit. Again, not to be too far off the ground, but you may want to cheat this up a little bit, cheat this down a little bit at the high spot, so that it kind of evens things out. You may have another one here, just for reference, and then another high spot here. And then from here, once you get your transitions right and it's flowing the way you want, then instead of like our first group where you just set them and then you came back later and ran your line, now you're gonna run your string line to follow, well, that's a horrible drawing, but to follow this as you go. And then you're gonna come back and use this string line as a guide and set all your posts, the top of those, to that string line as you're going. And then that ensures that you've got the proper height and the flow and everything is in position like it needs. And so there you've got to put that that work and effort and planning in on the front end when you're setting, and then that makes the final install a lot smoother. Well, I say smoother. It would be if you don't do this on the front end, it's going to be impossible to install correctly a vinyl or aluminum once you've got your post set. All right, so just as a visual demonstration and why behind Group 2 being different than Group 1, this is a white vinyl post, and this is for 3-rail. You could have this for privacy or different types of vinyl. Aluminum can be similar, where it's obviously not a vinyl post, it's an aluminum post, but it's got pre-routed or pre-cut holes. So with this is why the process is different, because these holes are pre-cut to receive the rails that make the fence section. So here, that as we explained, we've got to set this at the correct height, because we couldn't set this like Group 1 and then later come and be like, oh my gosh, this is too high or this is too low, and then say, well, I'm just gonna cut and trim this in order to vary the height. Well, that's not possible with a vinyl, because if you come and just cut and trim this, it's gonna mess up your holes, and then you can't install your rails or your sections the way that you need to. So that's the why behind the vinyl and aluminum being different, because they've got pre-cut holes, and why that takes a little bit more strategy and planning on the front end. I'll grab some wood, a wood post. Obviously, this is a blank canvas, so this is just a wood post. Again, we need to make sure that we set it deep enough for structure, and we leave enough room at top to get the height that we need. So we don't want to set it too low, but we don't have to be as exact with this Group 1. We can set it, and then later on, we're still doing this same process of finding transition points and making different transition points in order to make the fence flow. But you're doing that after the post has been set. You know, we're marking this, we're running our string line and finding where that top of the fence is gonna be, and then we're cutting to trim that to height. So that's like the wood. Same scenario with a steel. So same scenario with the steel or chain link. A little bit different than the wood, because wood you're just nailing in, you got a blank canvas. But the same, this is a blank canvas, because although these use brackets to install your sections, we're able to be in the Group 1 category, where we let the concrete set up, then we're finding our top line, running string, or marking, we're trimming this, we can move this cap down if we need to. Same with the chain link. So that, in just a visualization of the post, is why and how those Group 1 and Group 2 are different. Hopefully that gives you some information and understanding behind the fence setting process, and whether you're planning for a project at your home or business, or if you're hiring somebody to do it, it gives you the knowledge and information that you need to consider and to look out for. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out, comment below, and we'll get back to you. That's gonna have to, well, you can see.
Be sure to like this video, it helps us out a ton, and also be able to I gotta get in character.
Hey guys, thanks for checking out this video with us. I hope that was helpful.
Be sure to like this video, it helps us out a ton. Also, subscribe to our channel for more videos just like this.